Hello everyone and welcome to this live stream about RevenueCat. Today we will go and talk about how we can implement revenue in-app purchases and subscriptions on different platforms like iOS, Android and web applications. Today we have also a special guest with us, Charlie Chapman. Welcome to this live stream, Charlie.
Thanks for having me.
Great to be here with us. Okay, as Charlie is the senior developer advocate at RevenueCat, so it means we can ask him a lot of questions about RevenueCat. So you guys can just write down all your questions about RevenueCat in the comment section, and then later we are going to answer all of the questions at the end of this live stream. Okay, now we can start. But before we start with the RevenueCat live stream, I have a quick reminder. Here we have also our second WhatsApp community, which you guys can join by scanning this QR code or clicking on the link, which you guys can see it on the comments. There you can just talk with the other people about the Flutter. You can also find some jobs and also ask your questions regarding to the Flutter. Next to that, we have also our WhatsApp channel, Hey Flutter WhatsApp channel, which you can also join this, and there you will be shared with some news about Flutter and also some news about our team, heyflutter.com. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Okay, Charlie, as a first question, we can go with what is RevenueCat. So you can just answer these questions from your side and give us some more information about RevenueCat.
Yeah, definitely. So RevenueCat it's kind of broken into two different parts. So the first part is it's a set of SDKs for both for like native iOS with Swift or Android or Flutter or React Native for basically all of the mobile platforms you can think of. It's a set of SDKs that wrap around Google Play billing library for Android and StoreKit for iOS. And the point of these SDKs is to make it way easier to implement in-app purchases and subscriptions than if you tried to do it manually to each of those. Especially if you're doing both platforms, which for Flutter or React Native is extremely relevant because we wrap both of those and give you a common interface between them. And then the other side of that is we have a whole backend system that also communicates with those two different stores. And that backend system includes a website with a dashboard, and it gives you, live charts with information about the purchases that are coming in, as well as letting you change things behind the scenes for changing what your paywall looks like. We actually have a whole paywall framework now that renders the UI, and you can change all of that in our dashboard on the back end, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. And then you can also run like A/B tests, and it can get more and more and more complicated as your business needs get more complicated. But if you pull it all the way back, the initial idea is it just makes it way, way easier to implement in-app purchases and subscriptions into your mobile apps.
Mhm. Okay, great. So, yeah, I have another question. Why should we use RevenueCat for in-app purchases? Before we go to our live demo, I just want to ask you that. Why should we use RevenueCat for implementing in-app purchases or subscriptions in our applications?
Yeah, so I think the answer to that kind of depends on where you're at. So if you're at the beginning of implementing in-app purchases, the answer is because we make it way, way easier. Even if you're only targeting a single platform, we spend an enormous amount of time and energy making the SDK and the developer experience very good, as well as documentation being very good, as well as we have a team of engineers on the backend side who work tirelessly to keep up to date with all the changes that Apple and Google are making so that you don't have to mess with any of that. So that's kind of on the, like, if you're a new app or an indie or something like that, it just makes it way, way easier to do. But then if you're at a bigger company or you started out as a small indie or something and you grow to something bigger, we have layered on more and more features to make us still worth it at that end. Even if you're willing to hire a bunch of people, we've built A/B testing features so that you can run experiments and optimize your paywall. We just released a new like targeting feature so that you can show different paywalls to different users based on all sorts of different metrics, like what country they're in, stuff like that. So like for bigger businesses, we've layered a bunch of advanced features to also make us worth doing. But then all the way down at the small end, if you're a small indie, the real big story there is that we're just so much easier to implement, especially if you're cross-platform.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it means we can just easily add the in-app purchases or subscription in our application using RevenueCat. Okay, that's really
Yep,
great.
exactly.
All right, now let's go here with the next slide. And here I want you, Charlie, to just show us how you're going to implement RevenueCat in one Flutter application. Just show us how we can use RevenueCat in any Flutter application. Can you maybe you can just you need to share your screen
Yep.
here.
Yeah. So I'm sharing my screen now. I think you should be able to switch to it. I don't know. Will I see whenever it's switched over? Let me know. All right. So you can see my screen right
Yeah.
now. Okay,
Yeah, we
perfect.
can.
So and I'll just like start up front here. My native language is Swift. My Dart and my Flutter experience is pretty rusty. So I did all of this actually pretty quickly, which I think shows how easily you can integrate this. Because even with my experience, I was able to add it just running through our docs. Um, but what I did here is I took the default like create Flutter app. So this is the standard counter. Anybody who's run through a Flutter tutorial has probably seen this, right? Um, the only change you'll notice here is I have this one extra label here that is subscribe to Pro to unlock. Right now, that's just an inert label that doesn't do anything. So it's just the counter button where you click that and it counts up. So the idea was let's add in-app purchases to this very complicated app here, so that users can subscribe to enable the ability to count how many times they hit that button. That was the
Mm-hmm.
idea. So before we
Okay.
get into the actual code, you need to set everything up. So we'll start by jumping into the RevenueCat dashboard. So this is what our dashboard looks like. I'm using Arc, so this is my browser, and in here I have a project called Flutter Demo, and inside of a project, so project in RevenueCat kind of represents a app like concept, and then within a project you will have multiple apps that actually represent each platform, so to speak. So right now you can see I've set up one. You see the Apple logo. This is my iOS app. That's the only one I've set up for this demo. But if you went to add another app, you could add Play Store, Amazon Store, and then you can actually set up a Stripe web app as well. So if you have a cross-platform app that you want your subscriptions shared between all of them, you can actually set all of that up in the RevenueCat dashboard.
Okay, Charlie, before you go on, there is a question someone is asking.
Okay.
He's asking, does it work on Windows or Linux? Someone is asking. The
No, we don't. Well, no, like not native applications. We don't have
Mhm.
an SDK for Windows. We don't have an SDK for. I don't actually know what the SDKs are for native Linux app development. But no,
Mhm.
we don't have those unless you were using. I guess I shouldn't. I don't know if this is like a. Our engineers are probably get annoyed at me, but maybe you could do this if you were building a like React Native or Flutter native app. Maybe you could
Mhm.
use our React Native or Flutter SDK, but honestly, I don't know of support for that specifically. So I guess I should say the answer technically is no, but maybe theoretically you could get it to work. But you could definitely get it to work on through the web on those platforms as well. Then.
All right. Okay. Yeah, you can go on.
Okay, cool. So if we go into my iOS app here, there's a whole bunch of configuration. Our docs go through how you fill all this out, so I'm not going to bore you all with all these details. Um, but the important thing here is this is connected to my App Store Connect account, where I've already created an app. and that, that's what these IDs are all connecting it to. And that way, RevenueCat, the dashboard, can talk to your app in App Store Connect, and we can get events whenever a subscription has occurred or an in-app purchase has occurred, which is how we like power our charts and stuff. So once you have that set up, you
So
need to
you mean
actually. Oh, go
for
ahead.
adding yeah, sorry. So you mean for implementing the revenue card, first of all, we need to add our application. For example, if it is iOS, we need to add it to the App Store and then get some keys from there and then connect
Exactly.
our okay. All right.
Yeah, and there's some more keys you'll see in here too. So this in-app purchase key configuration, that's a file that you have to pull. Again, our docs walk through all that. There's some keys for helping you with testing and all that. We also have keys for the API, the App Store Connect. There you go, the App Store Connect API, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really important because of something I'll show you here in a second. Um, so the next thing that you would need to do then is actually set up the products that you want your users to buy in your app. And that's something that has to still be set up in the individual stores themselves, because this is like something that they technically manage, right? So I can just go over to App Store Connect, and this is my like kind of demo App Store Connect world. And so I have an app here called Flutter RC Sample. And this is, if you set up an app in App Store Connect before, this is pretty standard stuff. And down here on the left is the monetization section, and there's in-app purchases and subscriptions. So for this example, I'm going to show you some subscriptions. You could also set up one-time in-app purchases as well, and we integrate with that too. So if we go into subscriptions, you can see I already created a subscription group called Pro, and the idea here is in App Store Connect, you can set up a subscription group that represents different products that unlock the same thing. So here, I have a product or a type of product called Pro, and there's an annual version of that and a monthly version of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are distinct products inside of App Store Connect that a user can purchase. The reason they need to be in a group is because this gives the users the ability to switch from monthly to annual, and that's all like managed by Apple automatically for you. But from our perspective as the app developers and integrating RevenueCat, the important thing here is that we have two distinct products. There's this FRCS 1999. This is a name I gave it that sort of represents this is my app. The price is $19.99. It unlocks it for a year, and then this one includes a 1-week trial. Again, this is just a string that I made up. You can call these whatever you want. And then
Mm-hmm.
this is the monthly version of that. So you need to set these products up in RevenueCat in order for RevenueCat to understand what products you can unlock. What I was referencing earlier, where you can give RevenueCat the API keys to talk to App Store Connect, the reason that's nice is if I go into this product section, this is where I would need to set up my products. They need to match what's in App Store Connect, which you can do manually by clicking new and then creating a new, then go into the iOS App Store. And then you can create these products manually by pasting in the identifiers here. But we also have this button called Import Products. This will just go out to App Store Connect and pull them in so that you don't need to manually type everything in. So if you hit Import Products, it will pull those products in from App Store Connect, and they'll look something like this. So now
Mm-hmm.
RevenueCat understands the products that you have set up in App Store Connect. Now, in your code, what you theoretically could do is you could say, say we wanted to make it to where if you hit that plus button, if you aren't subscribed already, we want it to pop up a paywall because you don't actually have that feature unlocked, right? You could say if the user is subscribed, has an active subscription to this product,
Mm-hmm.
or if the user has an active subscription to this product, then let them hit that button. Otherwise, show the paywall. But that logic starts getting more and more complicated as you add more products, especially if you're like running experiments and you're creating new products all the time. So the better way to do this is in code. We want to say, is the user subscribed to Pro? This kind of concept of Pro, yes or no? And whether or not the user subscribed to Pro is kind of a separate piece of logic.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that concept, this concept of Pro in this case, is what we call entitlements. And so what you're really asking in code is the user entitled to Pro? And then you can attach different products to that entitlement. And then every single product that's associated with that entitlement will unlock the same features. And then you can just keep adding more and more products and attach it to the same entitlement, and you don't have to change any of your code. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So in this case, and this is where the entitlements tab comes in, I've created an entitlement. I call it Pro. You could some apps have multiple entitlements. Like you may have seen apps where there's a gold tier, but then there's also a platinum tier that unlocks even more features, and it's a little bit more expensive. So that's why you can create more. Most apps have a single entitlement. That's you've either subscribed or you haven't. So in this case, I have a single entitlement called Pro. And if you go into here, this is where you can attach products. So I've already attached those 2 products that I showed you earlier to the Pro entitlement. So now in my app, all I should ever have to ask is the user entitled to Pro? And it knows to check meaning our SDK knows any of these products that are associated here will unlock that feature. So that's kind of products and entitlements. And then the last piece to this is what we call offerings. So an offering is essentially the paywall itself that the user is going to see. So if you open a paywall, what products do you want to show that user as an offering? In my case, I'm only going to have one, and that one offering is going to show both the annual and the monthly product. Now you notice that these are actually called packages here, and
Mm-hmm.
this is a little confusing, but the reason for that is an offering is something that's the same for Android or iOS, either way. So you can associate a you can change your offering, and it should change your Android version and your iOS version at the same time. So we have this extra layer of abstraction called packages, which is essentially a one-to-one mapping to products. So in my case, I have an annual package, and it has that one product that was our annual product we set up, and a monthly package, and it has that one product. The only reason you'd have multiple products in here is if you also have an Android app. And the Android app will have its own products because that's set up with Google Play Store. And then you can put both of those products in the same package, and now you have one annual package, one monthly package, and then that's what's associated with offerings. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, of course.
Cool.
Yeah, because
So an offering essentially is now your paywall that you're going to show the user. But right at this point, it's just data. So the SDK will then, you can ask, what is my current offering? And the SDK will say, hey, you have an annual package and you have a monthly package, and here's the details, the pricing information, all of that. Recently, actually very recently for Flutter, we have released a new UI framework that will actually also render that paywall for you completely, automatically. And so that here is this feature we call paywalls. So if I go into paywalls, you'll see all of your offerings listed out here, because a paywall and an offering are kind of a one-to-one thing. And if I go into my default offering here, you'll see our paywall editor. And so this lets you pick, there's a bunch of different templates you can use. And this is growing, like we've added these to somewhat recently. So we're adding more and more templates over time. But this lets you build a paywall UI on our dashboard that will then be rendered automatically for you in the app. You don't have to build all of this in Dart or in Flutter.
mm-hmm.
And what's cool about this is it's driven by the backend. So I can go in here and I can make this button say, buy now, and save that. And if I had an app out there in production, the next time somebody opened up the paywall, they would see the new buy now. I didn't have to push any code changes or anything like that out. So that's one of the cool things about this. So I've built this little paywall, which is more or less just using the default template. that we have here for template 5. And now we can actually jump over into our code. The last
Yeah.
thing to look at here, I guess, really quickly is if we go to API keys, this key right here, which I'll show you because this is just a demo app, but this is the key that we're going to need to associate our Flutter app with this project in RevenueCat. So if we
Mhm.
bounce over to Visual Studio Code, you can see this. Literally, I just ran the create Flutter app. This is just the create Flutter app with a couple enhancements I made, and I commented them all out so we can kind of walk through one by one. So the first step is you actually need to import the RevenueCat SDK. And so if we go into our pub spec, and if I'm saying some of these things wrong, please correct me because again, my Flutter knowledge is a little rough. Um, but you
Okay.
can see I have added the purchases Flutter SDK. So this is our standard RevenueCat SDK for talking to our dashboard, automatically, working with StoreKit or Google Play Billing. Um, and then I've also added the purchases UI Flutter, and this is the new SDK that gives you the UI rendering automatically for the paywalls.
Mhm.
And so if we go back to our main Dart file, I've imported those two SDKs, and in our main function, I'm calling this configure SDK function that I created, and we'll just kind of uncomment these and walk through what they're doing. So, um, oops. So this is just setting up a log level so that if something goes wrong, I'll get debug logs in here. But the main thing here is we need to set up a configuration. So for right now, because I'm not actually doing Android, I'm not going to do anything for the Android version. But if the platform was Android, you'd set up your configuration in here. And then in our case, the platform is iOS. So I'm setting up a configuration by simply just calling this purchase or initting this purchases configuration and passing in that API key that we saw earlier in the dashboard. And that's all you have to do to set up the configuration. And now, as long as we've created one of those configurations, all we have to do is call purchases.configure and pass that configuration in. And now our app is configured to communicate with the RevenueCat backend, um, and deal with all the purchase information. And then the next thing I'm going to do is actually pop open the paywall. So showing the paywall is literally this one line of code that is present paywall if needed, and this string is the entitlement I talked about earlier. So if we go back into the dashboard and look at our entitlements, this is the pro entitlement. So what this does is it says if the user is not entitled to pro already, then show this paywall. And what I'm going to do here is you can run this app obviously from Visual Studio Code, but testing StoreKit stuff in particular from VS Code is a little bit problematic. It you have to use what is called the sandbox environment in App Store Connect, and it's a lot harder to test that. So what I've done instead is I've set up a what's called a StoreKit configuration file in Xcode, and I'll just show you really quick. So instead, I'm going to open the iOS app in Xcode, and in here I've created this file. It's called StoreKit configuration file, and you can find the information about this in our docs. But essentially, this is a local file that mimics what App Store Connect is going to do, and this makes it way easier to do local testing because it's not actually going out to App Store Connect's sandbox environment, which means you can mimic things like you can simulate StoreKit failures by just checking boxes in here. And it also means that if you delete the app and then rerun it from Xcode, it will delete all of your purchases. So it's really easy to test that your purchase works, delete the app, and then run it again, and then you can go through that same flow again. If you're in the sandbox, you have to wait for things to expire, and it gets a lot more complicated. So that's the reason I'm running this from Xcode. So if we run this app right now, and feel free to interrupt if you have any questions. Um,
Yeah, there are some questions. Are you running the project?
It's building still.
Someone is here asking, like he's saying, it seems like RevenueCat's paywall system isn't working well in Flutter. Do you think this is because it's new? What do you think about this question, or
I
is
mean,
it
if you're
is it
running
really
into
clear?
issues, we definitely want to hear what those issues are. Um, it was in beta for a little bit earlier this year, and then we recently released it out of beta, so it is a officially supported product. So, yeah, if there's an issue in Flutter, we definitely want to hear about that.
Yeah, okay. Because we used before RevenueCat in multiple projects, but we never faced any problem. I don't know.
Well, I'm assuming this is referring to the paywall UI specifically, which is very new. Um, the SDK itself has been around. The Flutter SDK itself has been around for a while and should be rock solid. And the paywall UI should be solid too, but it is newer, so there could be edge cases that people still haven't found or told us about or whatever. So you
Hmm.
see, this ran, and immediately it opened our paywall, and this is exactly what we saw in our dashboard with the buy now button, right? And so
Yeah.
here you can select which product you want, and if I close this and reopen it, you'll see it pops open again immediately. If I
Okay.
make a purchase now, and this is using that StoreKit configuration file, so it's not going to be a real purchase. Um, you can see, the purchase was successful. It will close. We haven't written any code to actually do anything, so the text here still says you need to subscribe. But that purchase was made, which means if I close the app again and reopen it, because whoops, because we use this present paywall if needed and told it which entitlement to look for, it shouldn't show the paywall again because we've already made that purchase and I haven't
Yeah.
deleted the app. So now you can see it show that purchase. So you've already, you can see how little code I just wrote. There's a little bit of setup needed because you have to set up with the stores, but we already have a working paywall now that's visually usable and everything.
Yeah. So right now, I think we can also see that purchase in the dashboard in the revenue cut, right? Or no?
Um, uh, I should know the answer to that. But if you're using the StoreKit configuration file, I don't think you would see that. Yeah, we're not seeing any live transactions right now because it's not actually making a real purchase in the store.
Yeah. It's a test. Okay.
Yeah, if we have sandbox data on, oh no, okay, I was wrong. It does show even if you're using the StoreKit configuration
Okay.
file.
Wow.
Whoops.
Okay.
So you
Cool.
can, if you're using that StoreKit configuration file, it still is going to send that purchase to us. I guess that does make sense. So it'll show as sandbox data.
All right.
Um, so the next thing we would want to do then is actually show something different on the UI, right? If the user has made a purchase. So we're just going to change this text to say thank you for subscribing. So if we scroll down to that text widget, is that the right word in Flutter? I'm showing my
Yeah.
ignorance here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's
so we're looking at this. It's just a little Boolean here that's currently set to false. So we're just looking at that, and if it's true, we're going to say thank you for subscribing. If it's false, which right now it's hard coded to false, it's going to say you need to subscribe. So we just want to change this is pro to true whenever that purchase is made. So if we go into this widget's init state, I'm already calling this function called setup is pro, and
mm-hmm.
that's this function right here. And so if we comment this out, what this is doing is adding a listener to the RevenueCat customer info object. And so what this does is customer info contains the information about that customer's purchases in RevenueCat. And so if anything there changes, it should call this callback. And then we can look at that customer info object, look through that customer's entitlements, and see if there is a pro entitlement in there. And if there is one in there, we can check if it's active and set is pro based on whether it's active or not.
Yeah.
And so once we do this, assuming that that I did this right, and you can see
Yeah.
again, I'm running this through Xcode. We should see now it says thank you for subscribing because I didn't delete the app, so that purchase is still there. So if I delete the app, make sure you delete and don't just remove from home screen because that won't actually delete it. So now we should see you get the paywall right away. If I dismiss it,
Yeah.
it says I need to subscribe. And then if I rerun it and then I make a purchase, it should automatically update. Now it says thank you for subscribing. So
Okay.
now we have that logic to change what our UI looks like based on whether or not the user is subscribed. And then the last thing, if we're running low on time, let me know because I don't know how much farther we want to get. But if we have some more time, I can just set it up so that when you hit that plus button, it will pop the paywall if you aren't subscribed. Otherwise, it will let you actually increment the counter. Are we good on time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. You
perfect.
can just go on and explain that.
Cool. So that button, and this is again just that default button that was already there, it calls this increment counter function. And if we go into that counter right now, it's literally just incrementing the counter. Instead of doing that, what we can do is add another listener here to the customer info object, which this will return immediately whenever you call it to, which is how I'm using it here. And looking at that customer info object, checking the entitlements, checking if you have an active pro entitlement. And if you do, update the counter just like we were before. Otherwise, make that same call that we made before to present the paywall if needed. And that's all we should have to do here. So now if I run it, and I didn't delete it, so again, we will see that I'm already subscribed. If I hit the button, it increments the counter. But if I delete it, and run the app again, we should get the paywall right away. I'm going to dismiss it, not actually make a purchase. It's saying I need to subscribe, and if I tap this button, it just pops the paywall. And then,
Okay.
once I make a purchase, just like before, now I can increment the counter.
Okay.
So that's pretty much implementing in a nutshell. I can show you too really quick. One of the cool things, actually, I shouldn't have. I'll just run it real quick. So that app, I'm building it to the device right now, so you're going to see the paywall pops up. I can go into that paywalls page, and I can tweak this to be like a red button, for example, instead of
Okay.
green.
Totally. You can customize it, this paywall page, right?
Yes. So this is completely, yeah, I should have maybe spent some more time. So I can completely customize this. So say, feature 2 is cool, is not a very exciting feature. I can get rid of that one. I can add another one that's like feature 3 is the best. It makes sense because it's the second one. And I can choose like a different icon for that one, which X is probably not a great one. Let's say Android. And then, add another one that's like, this is another cool feature. Make that one the notification bell icon. And then, maybe you can also set different dark mode colors. So you can change the whole color scheme based on whether it's light mode or dark mode. I can change the call to action. We can go back to continue here because that's a little bit more exciting. And actually, I can say the call to action is different based on whether or not there's a free trial or not. So that's what this right here is. But yeah, so all this, you can change what these images are, this image up here. And different templates have different options. So
Yeah.
like this template right here only really allows for one product, but it's a lot more kind of simple. This one right here is the it's a paywall that's sort of designed to like give users clear expectations for how the trial works, which a lot of companies use this kind of style. So we kind of add them based on what we see in the industry and what people are asking for. Um,
Mhm.
so if I go back into here and I save this, so I'm not going to rebuild. This is going to be the same exact app. I'm just going to close it and reopen it. Now you see our red button. We have our new features. All of this happened on the back end. Zero code had to change, which means we didn't
Yeah,
have to push it to Apple, wait for app review to reject us 18 times for some weird
exactly.
reason. All of this would just happen instantly.
That was really great. Wow, good feature.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty cool. Um, and all of this, so I kind of glossed over the offerings, but the offerings is the collection of products that a paywall shows.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our features, our advanced features, are built off of offerings. So I could go into here and create an experiment, an A/B test, and in this experiment, what you can do, and actually, I only have one offering, so I can't do this here. But what you can do is you can pit two offerings against each other. So I could create another offering that only has the annual plan. It doesn't have the monthly at all. And maybe I
Mm-hmm.
even use a different paywall template or something like that. And then I can run an A B test that compares those two. And RevenueCat will automatically send half of your users the first offering with that first paywall template. And then the other half of your users the other offering. And then we have a whole bunch of charts that you can look at that show you the difference in the performance across the entire subscription lifecycle. So you can see like which one got more trials, which one had more of those trials convert, which one at the end of the day brought you more money, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, great. Uh, all right. Do you have anything else to add at the end of this demo, Charlie? Any
No,
important
I mean
things?
I can keep talking about this all day, but I think
Yeah.
this covers at least at the high level kind of the features that we offer.
Yeah.
But if people have questions, I will not hesitate to jump in, or I can even jump in. I have some side projects where I can show you real
Mm.
data if you have any questions related to that too.
No, I think it was really good demo. You showed everything about the Revino cat. I think now we can just go with the new slide and with the new questions. Okay, the new question. The next question is about is Revenue Cat for free? We can use the Revenue Cat for free, or how we are going to use it.
Oh yeah, actually I can. I'm still displaying my screen. I can just show you our pricing page. That might be an easier way to, excuse me, an easier way to show it off. But it's free, kind of, is the answer. So the way our pricing model works is it's based on the tracked revenue. So how much your app is actually making. So if your app makes less than $2,500, uh, everything is completely free. You get every single feature that we offer, A/B tests, experiments, all of our sort of like enterprise level features, all the way down to obviously the SDK and the simple stuff. All of that will be completely free. Once your app makes more than $2,500, then we will charge 1% of your monthly tracked revenue. So at that point, it's only going to be 1%. So you're never going to go in the red. You're never going to owe us more money than you're making from your app. And it
Yeah.
sort of scales up from there. And if you're a bigger company, obviously we then have enterprise plans and you can talk to a salesperson and there's different
Mm-hmm.
features and stuff that you can talk to us about there. But uh, for most people, for indies, for people learning, most of the time it's going to be completely free. And then I get tweets, every day from people who are very excited that they get to pay us because that means that they finally made enough money that they need to pay us, which is kind of a fun like structure for our pricing model.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So for the first thing, it is free, but after sometimes when we are going to earn more than 1,700 per month, so 1% you are going to get it, right?
Yeah, $2,500 is the time whenever you market. The
Uh-huh.
1,700. This is our scale plan.
All right.
So this is for bigger companies who I don't remember all the specific details, but um, it's built a little differently and the support's a little different. But for most people, Pro is what you want,
Yeah.
and that's going to include all of our features and everything still. And then yeah, it's totally free as long as you make less than $2,500 of
Uh,
monthly tracked revenue.
okay, great. All right. Okay, now I think we can go to our next session. I think now it's time to answer the questions from the people. We have our Q&A session. Let me just share my screen here. I think most of the questions I asked during the live stream, but let's just see it together again. If you don't want to be, I wish. Okay. There is a question from Malcolm Green, if I'm not wrong with his name. He's asking what make RevenueCat different from in-app purchases or pay plugins.
I'm not sure what those plugins are. I
These are
apologize.
some other packages next to the RevenueCat. There are some other packages like in-app purchases and pay plugin. So can you just tell us some benefit about RevenueCat, which instead of these two, we should use RevenueCat.
I mean, I can't
Why?
I can't speak to the differences between those packages specifically because I don't know um,
Mhm.
how those work. I will say the thing that compared to most of our competitors, at least that I keep up with, I think one of the big differences with us is uh, we have a huge customer base, both on the indie side and on the enterprise side, and that's growing. And what that means is we've seen just about everything. I don't know that there's probably anybody in the world that knows Android's App Store in-app purchase system and Google Play Billings in-app purchase system better than us. Uh, we find out if something's gone wrong before almost anybody. We have a status page that kind of tracks those different services because if something goes wrong, on Apple or Google side, we hear about it immediately because we have so many customers that are running into it. And we have a team of engineers who that's their whole job is figuring out what's going on there. Um, so that is one big differentiator between us and
Yeah.
most other packages. Again, I can't speak to those two specifically, but that's definitely one of the things that we're really proud of and we take extremely seriously.
hmm And I can also say from my side, I use RevenueCat and before that in-app purchases. But I feel RevenueCat is very easy to implement in-app purchases and subscription inside our application because it has really good documentation and all the steps for integrating in-app purchases or subscription is written there and we can go easily step by step to integrate that. I prefer RevenueCat instead of in-app purchases. uh, I think, yeah, I think the other thing, we have not that much questions for the for this live stream, and for the other questions I have already asked you during the live stream. Actually, I think that's all from this session. I also, and we are at the end of the live stream. Okay, then I can just say thank you very much, Charlie, to just being part of this live stream with us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. This was legitimately fun. I haven't dug into Flutter as much recently, and so it was a good
Mhm.
excuse to get reacclimated with Dart. I always forget how delightful it actually is, and I love working in VS Code too. So just getting prepared for this was fun, but it was really fun to talk through this with you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, and that was really great to having you in our live stream. It was really good, and we learned a lot about RevenueCat. So I think from now on we can implement RevenueCat in our Flutter application easily. Okay, thank you so much again, Charlie, and thank you everyone who were watching us. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Bye.